things I've 3D modeled and printed with my 3D printer. I had a friend talking to him on the phone. He kind of figured that 3D printers were just kind of useless things, that people just printed junk with them. And yeah, I've done a little of that too. There's a raptor skull. That was kind of like a waste of time, but I guess you got to do a little something just for the fun of it. Now, I started off printing things for it, with it. An example would be, if you notice the enclosure I made out of a table I got at Walmart, cube table. There's a piece of glass on that table, and the front feet needed some riser blocks. So I printed those, big deal. Another thing were the clamps that hold it down. Now the clamp in the back has kind of a finger sticking up on it. That's kind of a first generation. This finger sticking up wasn't quite high enough to suit me, so I remodeled it where it came on up higher, and that kind of captures some of the wires in the back of the printer. The first thing I modeled and printed was an iPhone stand for the wife. She was on a cruise in the Caribbean with her friend, and she wasn't around to ask if she had wanted it or not. She didn't. It was just a waste of time. But anyway, a few more things that I printed were like this air, well, that's the exhaust end of it. There's the air intake that goes over the electronic boards. You notice over here there's a hole at the bottom that the air goes in, and if you take one of those thermal guns and point at it, the air coming out the top is 2 or 3 degrees warmer than the air going in at the bottom. And then on the other side, kind of hid by those rags, is an air intake for the power supply. And then I was gonna put an exhaust. I was gonna glue this to the side of the power supply and blow the hot air out. And I got to thinking, I don't want to lose that hot air. I want to keep that inside. I want to keep that hot air. So let's see, there's a little clamp that got 3D printed to hold some wires together. I made the wrenches for it on the CNC mill, and there's a 20, 10, 6, and a 5.5 wrench. And that little stand, 3D modeled it and printed it just to hold the wrenches where they're not floating around in there. For the wires that go to the LED lights, it's not going to focus on it. There's clamps that hold the tube that the wires go through. 3D printed those. I made that stand up there, and it's got my name on each side, and it's got bearings in it, and it really works good. And it'll accommodate any spool that comes in. That real wide spool is what I made it for at ABS. And then you print the hubs, whatever diameter the hubs come in at. You just print you an adapter for the hub. So and it works a whole lot better than the dispenser that came with the printer. Now there's nothing wrong with the dispenser that came with the printer. It works fine, but that one works even better. It doesn't even know it's pulling on anything when it pulls something off that. There's a sacrificial gear for a chainsaw. They cost $16 a piece. If you buy them now, I can print them. Take the hub out of the sprocket drive out of a broken one. There's the broken one. And just press in there. And now if it tears up, I haven't used it yet. If it tears up, of course I got control of the 3D model, and I can add material to the outside or make it thicker. We'll just have to wait and see. This was a failed print. If you look, I've got these quick pull handles on all my 220 machines. Years ago, at a place I worked, I almost got electrocuted. A tool grinder. A tool grinder exactly like that Gorton tool grinder there. The motor started smoking. and I leaned up against a wire fence that was between maintenance and the tool room, and kind of grounded myself. The factory wasn't air conditioned except for the offices where the people don't work. Out where you worked, it wasn't air conditioned. But anyway, I was grounded by sweat against that fence, and it had a quick disconnect with a metal handle like that. When I hit that handle, it knocked the crap out of me. An electrical engineer came out later. It was an electrical manufacturing company, and he wanted to know what happened, and I told him and how I happened to knock that switch off, and it shocked me. And he said, well, it's good you weren't turned the other way where the current went through your heart, or you'd be in the morgue right now. Now, you know damn well UL and the designers of electrical controls knew that damn thing could still kill people years ago. I think the new ones now have plastic handles on them. But that's a much safer way. There's no metal contact up there. I just grab that and jerk that off, unplug that. And like I say, all my 220 machines have those. That's a whole lot safer than an old disconnect. Speaking of the tool grinder, made this little plastic tray so I don't scratch my paint job up. Since I seldom use the sandblaster, I've got valves on the airlines, and this valve needed a handle, so I just printed one, made it good and thick, heavy. Now in wintertime, when it's cold out here, maybe that plastic will break, but there's no way it's going to break in hot summer. I bought this little socket set from Sears in about 1961. I'm an old fart, so I've been around for a while. And the thing that held the sockets was real thin red plastic. And it got stepped on by mistake and got busted up. And for decades, these sockets were just laying around in there loose. You couldn't ever find what you wanted. Plus, I've added 3 8-point sockets. So I modeled that up where it would hold all of them, and down in the bottom, once again, my name down there in the bottom of it. So I was really happy to get that. It's just something that always bugged me, that I didn't have the sockets all arranged right. Being obsessive compulsive, those things just laying around in there, that didn't work for me very well. Instead of traveling this year, the wife decided she wanted some kind of fancy concrete back porch. It looks like big old pieces, slabs of barn wood. But then, of course, that led to she wanted all of her furniture painted. And like most furniture, those little caps that go in the end of the tubing, they get lost or fall out. So I printed a bunch of those, and then we didn't want the paint dragging off on the concrete, so I printed those little riser blocks. There happened to be 6 holes in the bottom of those rings on those chairs, so they just kind of, push in there. If any of them fall off, which they haven't, then I'll take some contact cement to them. But so far they've all stayed on. Now when you drag a chair around, instead of the paint rubbing off on the concrete, the plastic, it don't show. As a matter of fact, the concrete has kind of a plastic coating on it, so kind of like plastic rubbing on plastic. And some of the plugs were different than others. There's an oval plug. I also put her name in it, not that you can see it, but they were her chairs, so I got her name in all those plugs. This is kind of a coincidental thing. I had most of the LED strip left over. I just needed a little bit for the printer enclosure, and I happened to have that power supply back from my CB days, so I did the math on it, and I had to cut a little bit of the LED strip off. Found the board the right length, didn't even have to cut the board, but in a way I got a free LED light out of the deal. That piece was going to be a piece that held an accessory for the tool grinder, and I printed it out, but I tore it up. It was so thin on the bottom, I tore it up trying to get the support material off of it. But it wasn't a waste. I learned from it, and from it then I took the CNC mill and milled a piece out of aluminum. There it is, out of aluminum. Now all that it does is it just keeps this from hitting the machine, and it keeps from marring the paint up. Like I said, I'm an obsessive compulsive, so I went to the trouble to paint the thing. I didn't want it marred up. Okay, this is a buckle for the motorhome. Oh yeah, in the motorhome there's some stuff to video that I've done. This is a little thing that conducts air down to the thing when you're using flex or rubbery PLA. It helps cool the PLA, and there's my first print. That's supposed to have ended up being a 3/4 cube with a 5.5 millimeter hex hole through it. I never did really get the hex hole, but that was my test block. I tried it time and time again, and finally got something. Finally got it to work. And then there's these little brackets that hold the sides on. This just slides out. There's 6 on this side, 6 on the back, and 6 on the right side that hold all that together. I was going to make all three, the 3 sides except for the back. I was going to use polycarbonate until I found out what that stuff cost. And I've got a magnet up here. I guess I ought to use, I've got video of making this thing. I don't know if there's an interest in seeing that or not. That's letting my heat out though. I don't want to do that. In the back I've got a thermometer and a humidifier gauge, and also the time. It's good to keep that warm in there. Let's see, oh, the motorhome. Let's go to the motorhome. The first thing is that holds a Coke can or a beer can or whatever. The wife wants me to make some bigger ones. It don't hold her insulated cup. But I made the bracket. There's one on each end of the couch. And then it's no big deal. I can model one of those up. I forgot about it. She wanted one of those. Then in the bathroom, running down the road, stuff would fall off that stand. The commode's kind of up on a little raised stand. And so I made that fence. Printed that out. Now, it's kind of fragile. I fully expect it to break someday, and I have to remodel it where it's a little sturdier. Then back here in the bedroom, you talk about lazy. Those things kind of look like mustaches. You hang 2 loops of cord on them, and there's one on my side and one in the middle and one on the other side. And you hang these 2 loops of cord on them, and you can suspend an Android pad or an iPad and watch movies. Now, if we're going to go on a big trip, she'll download a bunch of movies onto her iPad, and then we'll suspend it by those hooks in the middle, and we'll both watch the same movie. But she has the option of watching her girly movies or me and my revenge movies. I can watch, you know, my own whatever. Let's see. Let's turn another light on. I don't know if that. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, there it shows them there. So, whatever your imagination is, I mean, whatever you want and whatever. Well, of course, conjuring up stuff. That was what I used to get paid for. My name's on a number of inventions, 2 of which they manufacture. But anyway, that 3D printer is about the most fun machine of a single machine that I've ever had. My son gave it to me for my birthday in February, and so here it is July, so that's kind of a beginning of some of the stuff I've printed. And that's not all of it. I'm kind of at a loss to think of what else there might be. But that's some of it. So other than the raptor skull, I don't really think I've wasted my time with it. So my friend needs to see how productive these things are. Like I say, it's just a matter of imagination. If you got a need and you can conjure up something, and if you can 3D model, which I could do from my job, I learned to 3D model years ago, so modeling something's no problem. So anyway, I guess that's it for now. I just thought of two more. One is that hose adapter. I bought a new vacuum cleaner in Home Depot, and I didn't think about the accessories. It only came with one accessory, which I cared nothing about. This is my favorite accessory, so I had to make that adapter. That's the second one I made. The first one I made out of ABS, thinking ABS was so great. But this one's out of PLA. It's still holding up. And then in my stainless steel, those drawers, they're full of stainless steel screws, and so is that little cabinet. In my stainless steel stock, so to speak, when you get into the miscellaneous stuff, I needed a bunch of little containers, so I started printing these up. That needs to be maybe moved to another position. You only need one of these per slot. But anyway, like I say, you just think it up. What do you need? 3D model it and go print it. I went to the filing system on the computer, and I run across all kinds of things I printed. I'm probably not going to round them all up, but put new wires on the trailer, and to keep this new wire, the contacts from getting all corroded up, I printed that little thing that it plugs up into when it's not in use. So, like I say, you have a need, you 3D model it, and you print it. Since I'm getting old and everything, I acquired a lift chair, which I do not need, and hopefully I don't ever need it. But it didn't have a switch, and so I ordered switches straight from China. I got 5 of them for less than what one would cost locally, and that I needed that housing. So I modeled that housing, put that switch in it. Now I got a lift chair in case I need it or somebody in the family needs it. One more comment on those momentary switches for the lift chair. I got 5 of them, I said, for less than what one would cost locally, and got them straight from China. Well, I got news for you. The ones that they were selling locally, they weren't American made. They were made in China. All I'd been doing is be paying a bunch of middlemen for no good reason. Now I got 4 switches left over to do something with. Now these are mowing faucet parts. You know, mowing faucet's supposed to be guaranteed for life. That's a bunch of bull. Anyway, I modeled, I think it was the cold water first, and I had something to go by, and it was quite a job to model. I mean, there's a whole lot to these things. Now, I didn't print these. A fellow at work printed these for me before I left work. One of my last jobs was to research and purchase a 3D printer. But anyway, I didn't model it, and I found out I modeled what came out, but I found out if I turn this ring down to 910 to 913 thousandths in diameter, I can put one of those faucets together without taking it fully apart. And then this is the hot water, and I thought I could just mirror this and get that. Well, not so, and I didn't have one of these to go by. It took 3 or 4 tries till finally I got this one modeled right. But anyway, mowing faucet repair parts. I guess mowing's supposed to be guaranteed for life. I might ought to buy a faucet and then start sending those things back to the company one at a time. I got news for you, mowing faucets don't last for a lifetime. We built the house in '95 and now it's 2017. Those faucets are failing just one right after another. Electrical plate cover. Now I did that on purpose because I wanted those prongs on that 4-prong plug just to barely engage. And it's real simple. If one of them ever starts falling out, then I'll put that cover plate in the CNC mill and counterbore that where that can go on up in there deeper. But I didn't want it to go all the way up to where it could lock, because I want to be able to grab that handle and pull it out. And right now it can't turn and lock, but it's just barely engaged. So, I mean, it's boring enough to conduct current. I had the side panel off, putting the document holder on it, and now you can see the print of the shroud that goes over the Arduino and what they call it, a ramp card or something, I forget. But anyway, where the air goes in the bottom and comes out the top, the heat off the card will circulate the air. And like I say, the air coming out the top is at least 3 degrees warmer than the air going in at the bottom. Now, on a day when the printers run for a while and it's cool in the machine shop, I mean it's air conditioned shop, that difference could be greater. I can't say that I checked it at a time when the difference would be the greatest. And then, as I said before, this just slides down in those little keepers. I don't know if I can do that with one hand. Yeah, there we go. But anyway, I'll have to use 2 hands. I got to push that shroud back. Anyway, got a nice document holder that gets those papers up off the table. Last night I did think of one more thing that I printed. It's on the back of the tool grinder. There's some disc in between the grinding wheels and the paint. It's kind of taking it to another level that I'm sure most of you think is ridiculous, but why not? Got the printer, had the idea, and that took about 2 minutes to model those. Those discs, those plastic discs have holes in them, but the holes are at an angle, the same angle as those socket head cap screws are at the grinding wheels are hanging on or setting on. Anyway, right now I'm printing a camera mount for this camcorder, and the bottom of the camcorder, the metal insert's coming loose, and I was about to buy a new camcorder, but the one I'd like to have cost over $1,000, and this one works just fine, except that little insert's going to break out pretty soon. And what this piece is that I'm printing right now, it will fit my camcorder tripod, and so I'm going to JB weld it and also use the screw in the bad insert to hold it on there while the JB weld sets up, plus the screw that I make that will go into the camcorder will also be threaded, and outside of it will be knurled. And the inside of the hole, which has yet to print, this is upside down, that's not going to focus. Anyway, the hole has grooves in it, so that once I get all that JB welded together, then I can inject JB weld between this plastic piece and the new insert and weld it into this tripod adapter. And hopefully that'll be good enough for, say, another trip back to Australia or something. But anyway, hopefully that saves my camcorder for another trip or two. Now this is the original tripod mount. And this is the 3D printed one with the notch for the SD card door to flip open. What I'll do is with JB Weld between this and the bottom of the camcorder, I'll screw that in tight, let it set up, then I'll take JB Weld and a syringe and I'll inject JB Weld around that insert. That threaded insert is knurled, and of course there's the roughness of the 3D print, plus I put 2 grooves in the 3D model, so hopefully that holds it. Now I can put a monopod on it, or I can put it in a tripod, either one. So if this holds up for a year or more, I'll put a note in the description saying that it worked. If it fails right away, I'll put a note in the description saying don't waste your time trying to make one. But anyway, that's come on out of there, hold on a minute. There's what the insert looks like. It's knurled, it's tapped in the bottom 1/4 20, and of course it's got 1/4 20 threads here to screw into the bottom of the camcorder. And then, I don't know if you can see it, but there's 2 grooves modeled inside that printed hole, deep grooves. So the JB Weld in those deep grooves, plus the grooves just by the layering of the 3D print, and this knurling hopefully will hold that in there. And I won't have to buy a camcorder, because that threaded insert in the bottom of the camcorder is coming out. So maybe it works, maybe it don't. Time will tell.